Everyone who hates when I win. The winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
What an idiot I've been as a young person in this industry who has no filter and no idea.
Everyone who hates when I win the winged victory came to the loop in pieces, and people still line up to see her. What an idiot I've been as a young person in this industry who has no filter and no idea what she's doing. Disney just announced another Snow White remake, and it's not looking good for Rachel Zegler. She has been going through a terrible nightmare because of her nasty statements about the original film, and now after all that drama, Disney has decided to throw her out. There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. Rachel Zegler never thought Disney would start cutting ties with her. Sources close to the actress claimed she was devastated when Disney made their decision. She had spent months defending the film and pushing back against criticism, but in the end, even Disney lost faith in the project since the news came out that the studio began their journey for hiring a new Snow White. Rachel has been completely silent. It looks like she knows that saying anything would only make things worse, and after all the backlash, she knows that Hollywood won't be rushing to cast her anytime soon. Admit it or not, she's now associated with one of Disney's biggest PR disasters in the last decade. Rachel Zegler has been described as a walking PR disaster for Disney's. With that, first, Disney didn't make any public statements, but insiders noticed that Rachel Zegler, who had been the face of the movie, had disappeared from promotional events. The studio, which had been pushing her as the next Disney princess, was now avoiding her. And then reports came that Disney was considering a new direction for the movie, and now the bombshell has officially dropped. Disney has confirmed they're rebooting Snow White again, this time with a completely different vision. No more modern feminist revision, no more girl boss narrative that rewrote the character's entire purpose. The studio has announced they're returning to the roots of the 1937 animated film, aiming to recapture the magic that made the original so beloved. This is a massive shift for Disney. Just months ago, they were defending their new version by calling it a necessary update for modern audiences, but the backlash was too overwhelming to ignore. Fans had made it clear they didn't want to completely reimagine Snow White that disrespected the original edition. They wanted the fairy tale they grew up with. Fans accusing Disney of inserting unnecessary feminism into classic fairy tales. Disney has finally realized what fans had been saying all along. The test screenings, the negative social media response, and the complete failure of early merchandise sales has forced the company to face reality. With this new Snow White reboot, Disney has a rare second chance to get it right. The question is, what's actually changing in this new Snow White? According to reports, Disney is finally going back to what made the original film a classic in the first place. One of the biggest controversies surrounding the scrapped version of the film was Disney's decision to remove the iconic seven dwarves. They planned to introduce a group of diverse mystical beings that had little resemblance to the original characters. However, fans were not happy with their decision. Even actor Peter Dinklage ended up stirring debate over whether removing the dwarves was really the right move. There appears to be a sizable problem. Where are the dwarves now? Disney seems to be reversing their decisions by bringing back the classic characters as they were always meant to be. Also, the love story is staying the same. That means no more weird anti-romance stuff. One of Rachel Zegler's most controversial takes on Snow White was her insistence that the love story between Snow White and the prince was outdated. She even went as far as calling the prince a creepy stalker and saying Snow White didn't need a love interest at all. That didn't sit well with fans who grew up with the original fairy tale. Snow White is a love story. Removing that element not only changed the lot, it also changed the essence of the character. And perhaps the best news is that they're also bringing back the iconic Disney songs. Early reports indicate that the new version of Snow White will lean heavily on the original soundtrack, including fan favorite songs like Someday My Prince Will Come and Whistle While You Work. This is a major shift from the previous version, which was rewriting the music to fit a more modern tone. But here's the real question: will this new Snow White be enough to bring back old fans, or is it too late for the franchise? Disney has lost a lot of goodwill over the years with constant reboots that failed to capture the essence of what made the originals great, and after everything that happened with the last version, some fans might not be willing to give them another chance. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. But when Disney first announced their live-action Snow White with Rachel Zegler, they thought they were making history. However, they ended up making headlines for all The wrong reasons. They chose a young actress and pitched the movie as a fresh take on the 1937 animated film, but then came Rachel's interviews, and that's when everything started falling apart. She mocked the Disney franchise and claims she wasn't even a fan of their original movie. If I'm going to stand there 18 hours and a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour at it is streamed online. That's not exactly what Disney fans wanted to hear from the actress playing Snow White. Instead of embracing the fairy tale's legacy, Rachel Zegler thought Snow White needed to be a girl boss, a princess who didn't dream of love and focused on being a leader. While that might have worked for some other modern Disney stories, her comments clashed with what fans loved about Snow White. It felt like she was tearing down the story she was hired to bring to life. And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business. Thanks, fans started calling her out for being disrespectful to a classic film that shaped Disney's legacy. Meanwhile, Rachel tried to apologize, saying she didn't mean to offend anyone, but by then it was too late. Literally the star of a Disney movie, and she acts like she's some sort of victim, and that's the sort of mentality that is just poisoning people's minds. Like, Disney initially tried to ignore the situation, but behind the scenes things were not looking great. The first warning came from test screenings. Normally, studios rely on early audience reactions to change a particular movie before release, but when the first test screenings for Snow White happened, the feedback was disastrous. Reports from insiders described audiences calling the film soulless. Some even said it felt like Snow White was disconnected from the beloved animated classic. Fans picked apart everything: the visuals, the tone, the complete absence of the traditional dwarves, replaced by a group of CGI-enhanced magical creatures. The changes were so drastic that even casual Disney fans started questioning why this movie was even being made. And then came the merchandise disaster. Disney had started rolling out early Snow White toys, books, and collectibles, expecting them to be big sellers. However, retailers struggled to sell any Snow White products, and Disney's own parks saw minimal interest in anything related to the movie. The worst box office from a Disney live-action remake that they've ever done, and Dumbo didn't do very well, but this is actually performing much lower than Dumbo. At this point, Disney knew they had a real problem, and when the numbers started to reflect just how bad things were looking for the movie's release, they had no choice but to take down Rachel Zegler. Now, I want to hear what you guys think. Will this new Snow White be the redemption Disney desperately needs? Leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to this channel for more videos.